At some point, you built a version of yourself that was safe to show people. You probably don't remember when. It wasn't a single decision. It was a slow accumulation of small adjustments, like things you stopped saying because they got a bad reaction, parts of yourself you tucked away because they didn't fit, ambitions you quietly downgraded because wanting them out loud felt embarrassing or arrogant or just too exposed. And after enough of that, the adjusted version started to feel like the real one. Like, this is just who you are. Practical, realistic, not someone who makes a big deal of themselves. And mostly that works fine. You get through the day. People like you, or at least they don't dislike you, which starts to feel like the same thing. Life is manageable, except there's this other thing, this quiet, persistent sense that you're slightly to the left of your own life, that the version of you currently walking around in the world is a careful edit of something bigger, that there's a person you could be, should be, maybe, that you keep not becoming. And you can't fully explain why. You're not lazy or stupid. You know what you want, roughly. But something keeps getting in the way, and the frustrating part is that the something appears to be you. Carl Jung spent his entire career trying to understand exactly this. And what he figured out is strange and uncomfortable, and once you hear it, it will be very difficult for you to unsee. Jung had this idea he called the shadow, and this is not a metaphor for evil or your dark side in the movie villain sense. The shadow is simpler and weirder than that. It's every part of yourself that you decided at some point was unacceptable and buried. The ambition you were told was arrogance, the anger you learned wasn't allowed, the sensitivity that got mocked out of you, the part of you that genuinely doesn't care what people think, that got disciplined into submission because caring what people think turned out to be socially necessary. All of that stuff didn't disappear. Jung's whole point was that it can't disappear. You don't eliminate parts of your psychology by refusing to acknowledge them. You just relocate them somewhere you can't see, and then they run you from there. This is the part that takes a second to land, so stay with it. The traits you buried, they're still active. They still want expression, and because you're not consciously directing them, they find their own outlets, usually inconvenient ones. The ambition you suppressed doesn't go away. It comes out as resentment toward people who are less talented but more successful. The anger you're not allowed to feel comes out as passive aggression, or as a sharp comment you didn't quite mean, or as a vague contempt for everything that you can't trace back to a source. The confidence you decided was arrogance comes out as the opposite, as compulsive self-deprecation, as shrinking in rooms where you should be standing up. You're not behaving badly, you're leaking, and you'll keep leaking until you deal with what's in the container. Jung called this making the unconscious conscious. The goal isn't to become your shadow, it's to stop being secretly run by it, to look at the buried parts directly with some honesty and integrate them. Take back the energy that's been tied up in suppression and actually use it. There's a related concept Jung called the persona. The persona is the mask, the socially acceptable face you present to the world, and there's nothing inherently wrong with it. Everyone has one. You need one. The problem is when you fuse with it, when you forget it's a mask and start believing it's your face, and you can usually tell when this has happened by a specific feeling, hollowness. Like you're performing your own life rather than living it. Like you're saying the right things but not meaning them. Like the version of you that shows up in conversations, careful, appropriate, never too much, is technically you, but not really you. Not the full thing. The mask works so well that eventually you stop noticing you're wearing it. And then you start making big life decisions based on what the mask wants, not what you want. The career that looks impressive, but that you feel nothing about. The relationships you maintain out of habit rather than genuine connection. The version of success you're chasing because it was handed to you as the definition of success before you were old enough to form your own. Jung's question, and it's the question this whole video is really about, was who are you underneath all of that? Not the version your parents hoped for, not the carefully managed presentation. Who are you when you stop performing? Most people never find out because finding out requires sitting with a level of uncertainty that feels genuinely dangerous, because underneath the mask, there are things you want that might not be acceptable. There are versions of yourself that might not be liked, and being liked has been the operating objective for so long that abandoning it even briefly, even internally, feels like falling, this is where self-sabotage comes in. And I want to talk about it specifically because I think it's the most misunderstood thing in the entire self-improvement space. People treat self-sabotage like it's irrational, like some stupid glitch in the system. You want the thing, you have the ability, and then right before it happens, you blow it up, the relationship, the opportunity, the project. And from the outside, and even from the inside, it looks like self-destruction. Jung would say it's not irrational at all. It's the psyche protecting a story. Here's what that means practically. You have a very specific idea of who you are, not who you want to be, quite who you are right now. It's usually undersized, it has a ceiling on it, and when your life starts to exceed that ceiling, when the relationship is actually good, when the business is actually working, when people are actually responding to you, a part of your psychology experiences that as a threat because it doesn't match the story. And the psyche will sacrifice the external success to protect the internal consistency. This is what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's not poetic, that's operational. The ceiling you have on yourself isn't the world's ceiling. It's a story you absorbed early, reinforced constantly, and are now enacting so automatically that it feels like reality. The guy who gets close to something real and then finds a way to ruin it isn't weak. He's loyal to an old version of himself that he hasn't consciously decided to outgrow yet. And no amount of productivity strategy or morning routine fixes that. Because it's not a behavior problem, it's an identity problem. The behavior is just the symptom. Jung called the process of becoming who you actually are individuation. It's a long word for something that's both simple and genuinely hard. Individuation means the ongoing process of differentiating yourself from everything you've been told to be and moving toward what you actually are. Peeling back the persona, integrating the shadow, letting the full thing exist rather than just the approved parts. It doesn't happen in a moment. It's not a single realization you have that changes everything. It's more like a long series of small choices to be slightly more honest with yourself first, then with other people, to say the thing you actually think instead of the safe version, to pursue what genuinely interests you rather than what reads well, to let the ambition be real, to stop waiting for permission to be the larger version of yourself, because the permission was never coming from outside and you knew that. The reason most people don't do this isn't laziness. It's that the person you're afraid to be carries real risk. If you drop the performance and nobody likes what's underneath, that's a worse outcome than the hollow safety of the mask. At least the mask is liked. At least the suppressed ambition keeps you safe from the failure that comes with trying fully. At least the version of yourself that plays small never has to find out what happens when you play big and it doesn't work. That fear is real. It deserves to be taken seriously rather than dismissed with a motivational quote. But here's the thing Jung actually said, and this is the part I want you to actually sit with. He said the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. And what he meant was the cost of not becoming yourself doesn't stay inside you. It radiates outward. It becomes a low-level resentment that colors everything. It becomes a vague contempt for people who are doing the thing you won't let yourself do. It becomes the version of you that's technically present in your own life but not really there. And everyone around you can feel that absence even if nobody says it out loud. The unlived version of you is not neutral. It costs something. Every year, it stays unlived. It costs something. So practically, what does any of this mean for tomorrow morning? The first thing is the simplest and the most resisted. Write down the version of yourself you're afraid to be. Not the realistic version, not the version that's 2 steps from where you are. The actual one. The one you don't tell people about because it sounds like too much. Because it's arrogant or unrealistic or not the kind of thing someone like you does write it down, and look at it. That's the shadow work at its most basic level. Making the thing conscious that you've been keeping unconscious. It doesn't transform you overnight, but you cannot move towards something you're refusing to look at directly. The second thing is to find one place where you've been performing instead of being real and stop performing there. One conversation where you say the actual thing instead of the managed thing. One room where you show up as the larger version. Identity shifts don't happen globally. They happen at the edge, in small moments where you chose differently than you usually do and discovered that the consequences were survivable. Those small moments are the votes. Cast enough of them in the right direction and the story starts to change. The third thing, and this is the long game, is to get genuinely honest about your ceiling, about the story you're currently enacting about who you are and what you deserve and what's possible for someone like you. Because that story is running whether you look at it or not. The only difference between looking and not looking is that looking gives you the option to rewrite it. Jung's whole life was an argument for one thing, that you are not the edited version. The edited version is a strategy. Underneath it, there's something more full, more capable, more interesting than what you've been presenting to other people and to yourself. The fear of becoming it is real. The cost of not becoming it is higher.